Welcome to the Denise Hill Experience with stories and interviews that educate, inspire, and encourage. Now, here's your host, Denise Hill.
Hey family, it's Denise Hill. Welcome to another Denise Hill Experience. So honored to be able to share my life, my stories, my interviews, my experiences with you. They mean so much to me as I sit back and reflect, pulling out all the jewels of wisdom I've gotten out of every encounter with any and everybody I can think of, remember, look at old pictures of, everything. And pulling those jewels out just for me to look at, it doesn't make much sense. I try to pull the wisdom so I can apply them to my life, and even more so I can share them with you, and prayerfully there's something there that you can apply to your life as well that will inspire, encourage you, empower you to be the best version of you possible. If you read my book, Pass the Mic, Stories and Lessons from a Life in Radio, then you've already gotten a glimpse into this experience that I've had with this person who is so very special to me. Now, I don't get to talk to him as much as I used to, don't get to interact with him as much as I did, but when we do, it's like we just saw each other yesterday. Brother and sister for life. I'm talking about my brother, Israel Houghton. Some folks know him from the group Israel and New Breed. Some folks know him as Adrienne Bayonne's husband. But I met Israel's music before I met Israel. You see, as somebody who, at that time I was acting as the program director, the gospel music program director at a hip hop station. I played gospel on Sunday mornings while the rest of the day they played hip hop, R&B, things like that, right? So I was responsible for making sure all the gospel music got in, was rotated properly, that I remained relevant, that the show remained relevant, that we connected with the movers and shakers of the industry, the names people cared about, that I introduced new music that would kind of set the trend for gospel and the direction of inspirational music, not just in the DC area, but nationwide. It was a great training ground, and I definitely took a lot of those skills and relationships with me when I moved to New York and ran WLIB there. But in DC, one day a week, had to make the most of it. And I did that by making sure I was connected to the music and I didn't just play things that were on the chart. So I wanted something to move me, because if it moved me, I knew it would move the audience, impact their lives, and of course, make a dope show, right? So one day, I'm cleaning my apartment, and I've got a big old box of music that I have not reviewed yet, and I just start popping them CDs in one at a time. You know, you like to listen to music while you're vacuuming, while you're washing dishes, while you're playing with the baby, all that good stuff, right? So I'm popping CDs in one at a time, and you know relatively quickly whether or not that song that you're listening to is something that you're actually going to play. You know really quick if it's a good song, if it's a song that fits within the sound of your whole show, if it's an artist that's recognizable, or if it's somebody you have to introduce to your audience. You know all of that stuff relatively quickly, from how the CD is packaged, to what the label looks like, to those first 15 seconds of sound. You know really quickly. So when I pulled out this CD, and it was in a clear jewel case, but it had a white label on the CD. It was just white label with black print. Now, in the past, that would tell me this is probably somebody who I'm not going to play. Somebody who's just doing their best to get their music out. It's no professional picture, no fancy design. It was from a reputable label though, so that kind of had me, maybe this is a new artist that they're trying to break. Okay. It said, Israel and New Breed, new season. That's all it said. Nothing more, nothing less. But still, like everything else, I popped it in. Within 15 seconds, yes, that's all it takes. I knew that was a hit. Oh man, was that a hit. It was a new sound. It was indescribable. What was going on in gospel music at that time, Israel Houghton was not doing. Not with New Season, that first CD that he offered. Completely different sound of worship. So I did some research on him. He came out some dope camps. He came out of Fred Hammond's camp, Joel Osteen's camp. He's done a lot of work and a lot of music in the industry for a lot of years. And it was just his time to shine. I made the decision that next Sunday when I came on the air, I was going to introduce that song. I didn't know at that time that no one else in the nation played that song. No one else in the nation was checking for this little CD with the white label and the black letters. No one in this nation was even trying to say his name right, Israel and New Breed. Nobody was checking for him. So when I played him, got such a phenomenal response, I reached out to the label and said, hey, I need to interview this guy. That interview, like all my interviews, I try to go in depth. as best as possible, ask questions no one else is going to ask, get to know the person, their ministry, their mission, what drives them. And I didn't have a long length of time like I do with other artists because it was a live show, a live interview at that time. And so I got as much as I could, but it was enough to make an impression on Israel. And he was super grateful and excited that I broke his song. And I say broke that because after I played it, other radio stations in the nation followed suit, and boom, he was off and popping. Now, to God be the glory, because had I not played it, I know somebody else would have at some point. His music is just that awesome. Was then, is now, will be in the future. I am fully aware of the fact that God just happened to use me at that time. There is nothing special about me, though I do tend to have an ear for those types of songs, but still, God just happened to use me at that time to break Israel and New Breed. Oh, I love me some Israel Houghton. And I especially loved picking his brain during those early years in particular, because he came with such a different sound and such a different spirit. One could reason that maybe he was hearing something different. Maybe he was coming from a different place. Maybe he had a different mission. So I had to ask him about that and so much more. Oh, you're gonna love it. Check it out. Live in the studio, Israel from Israel and New Breed. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm geeked, man. This is the first time live in studio with you. We've done like a gazillion phone interviews.
Yeah, and just on location elsewhere, but not in here. It's cool.
So you know it's about to jump off, y'all.
Come on, man. Bring it.
All right. Talk to me about the New Breed concept, not just about the group, but the movement of New Breed.
Well, it is a state of mind. You know, at the risk always of sounding overconfident or arrogant, it's a new thing. And what we're seeing is a real emphasis on pouring into the next generation, mentoring, leading people, helping people move from just building their own destiny to being a part of a dynasty. And that really at the core of what we're about is that. Recently we had a retreat with our group and our staff, and we began to share, everybody began to speak into what they felt the vision for New Breed was. So we ended up writing a new mission statement based on the input of the group, which was phenomenal. And one of the guys who was helping us do this, a pro, said at the end of this whole thing, we worded it out. It was great. It all made sense. And at the bottom of it, in huge letters, he wrote, "Why?" And it totally flipped us, right? Because we were like, what do you mean why? I mean, we just said why, because we're going to do, and, we're called to this. And he's like, why? And it messed us up so bad that we left that retreat never answering the question. And 3 or 4 days later, the Lord started, because it bugged me, because I can't go that long with an unanswered question. I got to be able to call it and be done. And he said, when you can answer the why, then nothing will stop you from accomplishing it. And so a few days later, the Lord said, Sherwin-Williams. That's all he said to me. And I thought I was going crazy, for real. I looked at God like you just looked at me. And so I went to this, it's crazy, but I went to this Sherwin-Williams paint store.
Right.
And their logo said, cover the earth. And it had the earth with paint kind of all over it. And the Lord said, I made a promise that my glory would cover the whole earth as the waters cover the sea. So basically, you're a painter. Basically, everywhere you go, you're a part of bringing the sound of that glory to cover the earth. And until you've covered the whole earth, your job is not done. So in other words, it's almost a riddle. You're going to be at this, and your children and their children will be at this until I return. So for us, it was like, we know the why now. We're called to this ministry. We're called to affect change in cultures and generations. That's why the next record, it's important for us to do it in Africa as opposed to in the U.S. I mean, we really want to show this global impact of the word of the Lord and that sort of thing. And so we found our why, and that is to be a part of covering the earth with the sound of glory. Yeah.
Wow. What is that sound?
See?
Can you put it in words?
I can't. Honestly, I'm in the process of trying to, but I'm wondering if I'll ever be able to define it. But I think the heart of God is such that, it's a global, the word is global. The word in the spirit lately has been global. It's not relegated to just the East Coast. It's not relegated just to West Coast or the U.S. for that matter.
Right.
But God's expression and cultural expression goes far beyond what we understand in our own cultures and the people that we're comfortable being around. there's a sound that is coming up out of the earth that we have yet to fully tap into.
Yeah.
And so the sound of glory, I think, is an all-encompassing global sound.
Man, we got to get deeper into that. First, I got to take a break, okay?
All right.
And we also want to get deeper into who you are, because a lot of folks don't know you. You just kind of popped out of nowhere to blow up and be called the next Fred Hammond and all this good stuff. So
Sure.
we want to get to know Israel, all right?
All right.
Israel from Israel and New Breed in the house. Say your last name for me, because everybody says it about 4 or 5 different ways.
No, that's why it's just Israel. Houghton.
Houghton. Israel Houghton from Israel and New Breed.
Yeah.
Let's get to know you.
Okay.
All right. Your likes, your dislikes, all that. I have a nice little list here of things.
Oh, Lord.
All right. I'm going to give you a choice, and you say out of the two, which you prefer the most, okay? Band versus vocals.
Golly.
You know it wasn't going to be easy now.
That's not easy.
Come on, it's supposed to be off the top of your head. Band versus vocals.
Man, that's not fair.
Why not?
Because they're all precious in my sight.
I know, but which one? Now, I've seen you live in concert about a gazillion times. I mean, I'm a fan first, so
I'd
I've
have to
seen
say,
bopping and jamming. I'm assuming it's band, but then you hit those vocals.
Because, well, the good news is most of the guys in the band can sing, so band. So if I needed extra vocals, they could handle that.
All right, well, let's stay with the music for a second.
All right.
Guitar versus piano.
For writing, I like to write from piano. In worship, if I'm playing and leading something, I kind of like to be on guitar because I'm out front and I feel like I can still be a little more visible and transparent.
Mm-hmm.
But in my quiet time, most of the time I'm at a piano.
All right. Well, since you opened the door to worship, praise versus worship.
Worship.
No hesitation there.
No.
You want to go deeper with that?
Sure.
Talk to me about it.
Well, for me, praise in its purest definition speaks of what God is doing and all of that, and it's powerful and it's an entrance to go where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's obviously protocol in coming through the gates and into the courts and into the Holy of Holies. Where I find my purpose, definition, who I am, framed by God, I find as close to Him as possible.
Right.
And when I get to as close to Him as possible, I don't have to say, I think you're great and you have done great things. No, I sit there and I go, yeah, just speak to me.
Wow.
Sing to me.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want. And that conversation that happens that close and that intimate, is life to me.
All right. I'll take that. No problem.
Okay. All right.
Spanish versus English.
English. Spanish is hard, man.
But you're fluent in it, right?
Not fluent. But,
Really?
I'm a fluent singer in it.
Okay.
And I kind of understand what's going on. The conversational side of Spanish is I'm still learning. I didn't pay good attention in high school.
But you can sing anything in Spanish, huh?
Pretty much, I can read it and take it in and interpret it pretty well.
Okay. Last one. Fred Hammond versus Andre Crouch.
Andre, definitely.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's why. I mean, if we're talking old Andre, if we're talking new Andre, then I'd probably have to say Fred.
Okay.
And I'm not hating on anybody currently, but I don't think there'd be a Fred without an Andre. So you have to, of course, there wouldn't be an Andre without God. So how far does this go? But I think Andre really paved the way for worship going into multi-cultures. And I think Fred has done a great job of establishing himself primarily in one culture.
Mm-hmm.
But Andre was on, the Johnny Carson show. Andre's songs are sung in Methodist churches, Catholic churches, Protestant churches, all kinds of denominational, width and depth to what he's doing. And that really is the model that I'm following.
Mm-hmm. Church versus stadium.
Wow. It depends on, I think the obvious answer to that is stadium for this reason, impact, And although there is a power that comes in the church, if the church will go into a stadium, then if it's structured right, you can't help but have lost people come to a stadium because there are more people that would freely go to a stadium than would sooner go to a church.
Have you found much resistance in some churches where, maybe the leadership wasn't necessarily feeling your music ministry, but because you were a popular artist and they needed a popular artist at their concert, they brought you in and you found a little resistance in trying to get to that state of worship that you want to achieve in your concerts?
Are you trying to provoke me?
No, I'm not.
Listen, I've seen it all. I mean, I've been up there pouring my heart out and looked down and the pastor's, playing Scrabble on his Palm Pilot and just totally disengaged. I've seen, basically that same kind of thing. Come in, put butts in the seats, and I could care less what you do. And it's cool. There's a certain degree of enjoying being left alone, because if you're not into it, I don't want you to micromanage what we're going to do either, because that's going to hinder our flow.
Right.
But and a big part of what we're about is flow. A lot of pastors kind of want to play it safe or have maybe the wrong idea of what we're about. We get brought in for concerts, which is cool. I mean, I enjoy going to a concert and doing a concert as much as the next guy, but I really enjoy seeing God come into a place and be given the time to minister to people, to transform lives, and to show people their destiny. And really, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's get personal. Well, actually, what it is that I want to go into, I feel will really bless some folks. And in dealing with, we're just going to talk, brother and sister, here, and let them eavesdrop, okay?
Right. You're my sister.
I have a lot of friends who, they don't have relationships with their fathers. Some of them know their fathers. They live on the same block with them, but their father just drives past like, they don't exist, and they don't know that other side of who they are, of their makeup, of their being. You kind of have a similar testimony where do you have a relationship now with your biological father?
I met him when I was 17, and knew him for 6 years, and he passed away, actually, from lung cancer. But in those 6 years, for me, a lot of questions were answered, but probably the most angst-ridden time of my life was between 7 and 17. And I attribute so much of that to, even though I was in a great home, I was a black kid in a white family in a Hispanic church.
Right.
That was kind of my story. My dad, my stepdad and my mom pastored this church in New Mexico, and it was like, primarily Hispanic people. So there was a certain part of me that went, man, who in the world am I? I'm getting in fights at school, and people are calling me names that I don't even understand why I'm being called that. They used to ask my little brother. I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me, who's white, and they used to come up to him and go, okay, now you're white, but your brother's black, and why is he darker than you, and what's that whole thing about? And man, with all sincerity and purity of his heart, he would go, because he's the oldest. Like we didn't know that there was some crazy weird thing about us. But fast forwarding, I got a chance to meet my dad, and I'll tell you, the second I hugged him, as awkward as it was, there was like this gigantic weight that just slipped off my back. And there wasn't a whole lot of need to ask a bunch of questions at that point, because most of them got answered. And I saw myself in his eyes, and that kind of thing. And yet I look at my upbringing and my main influences from my stepdad, who's really my dad, and realize that so much of who I am really came from that. I feel the pain. And not to quote Bill Clinton, but I do feel the pain of those who haven't had that kind of loving expression, especially from their biological fathers. Right. We've had surrogate fathers step in and try and take care of business, or stepfathers step in and try and take care of business, and yet there's this biological father-sized void in a lot of us, and we go, man, why? And I think that is a big reason why I press in worship. And I love worship, and I appreciate the full exchange of it, because God is a father to the fatherless, and yet I struggled for years to really get that concept, because I'm going, well, if you are a father, and my only reference to that is this guy who left my mom when she was 8 months pregnant. Wow. Then when are you going to leave me? Wow. And most people, again, they're only going by what the diet that they live on every day. Yeah. And so they're going, man, I'm sure I'm going to get rejected by you too. And our theology is so jacked up, just culturally speaking. We think God is this mean, awful, just looking for us to step out of line kind of guy so he can just take us out. Yeah. And that's not it at all. Matter of fact, I'm diving into new depths, even though they're old depths. It's like fresh revelation that God has called us friend. We're servants, we're sons and daughters, but we're also his friend. And the same way he befriended Abraham, he calls us to be his friend. And you go, wow, and even that messes you up because you're going, okay, I have a lot of friendships that just died overnight. I have a lot of disposable, relationships that I have been, kind of the victim of. And yet God's going, I am not like that. If we're getting personal, I remember being 7 and meeting my grandfather for the first time, my mother's dad, who was a racist, jerk, basically. and I meet him for the first time. I'm watching my cousins and my younger brother and run up to jump on his lap. And so I just ran up with them. And the second I landed kind of up in his lap, the next thing I know, I'm on my back on the ground looking up because he pushed me away. He was like, oh my God, a black guy is running up on me. Yeah. And so, I went, okay, I'm only 7, but my whole 7 years just flashed before my face. What's wrong with me?
Right.
What I started to get it. There's something definitely different about me here. And in worship now, again, I really stress the intimate and the conversational piece of worship, the interactive piece with God of worship, because he's going, no, you can run to me. And I'll hold you. I won't drop you. I won't throw you. I will not let you go. And whether you come to me clean or unclean, we're going to deal with that. But first, you're my son. First, you're my friend. We'll get everything fixed the way it needs to be fixed. But I love you that way. And watching this transition in my life of approaching God still with humility, but now I can come to him boldly because I know who I am. And that is what we try our very best to get across to every worshiper that finds themselves with us.
What I tell you. Oh man, I love me some Israel Houghton. I love Israel and New Breed. I love Israel by himself. I'm hoping that he'll do the New Breed conference more and more and more, and that I can jump in on that as well. A place where people can gather who are like-minded and just want to have a pure place to worship and share thoughts of their relationship with God and how to improve it and how to share it and how to tell others of their experiences so that they too can become stronger in their relationship with God and continue to spread love throughout the world. That's something Israel's doing. He has gone to every corner of this globe, and whichever corner he has not gone to yet, I know he's going to make it there. He's got some more ministering to do, some more music to give. He and his beautiful wife, Adrienne Bayonne, his kids are even getting in on the music thing. I'm telling you, this is no end in sight. So I'm looking forward to sharing more experiences with you with Israel Houghton. I am your host, Denise Hill, and I hope that something that you heard has blessed you, has inspired you, has empowered you to look back on your experiences. Pull out those jewels. Remember those phenomenal pieces of advice that people shared with you, and then take them, apply them, and share them with others. I know I've got more to share with you. I do, and I am so looking forward to it. So please make sure you join me right here again for more and more and more of the Denise Hill Experience. Until next time, you stay blessed.
Thank you for joining the Denise Hill Experience. For more, connect with Denise at denisehill.com and on all social media at The Denise Hill. See you next time for more great stories and interviews inside the Denise Hill Experience.